You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast series. My name is Andrew Mackay-Smith. Welcome to the show. The interview subject I've got prepared for you is Jack Thomas from Sydney-based death sludge outfit Burial Pit. Now, the catalyst for the conversation is indeed a new album. Subhuman Scum from the band is due for release on May 21st via Blighttown Records. Now, I'd only heard, as you'll hear through the conversation, one song from the record. Lord of Limbs is the name of that tune, and it's a killer tune. It's fucking awesome, as a matter of fact. I expect big things from Subhuman Scum. And that's also on the back of this conversation here with Jack. I enjoyed it a lot. Got to know him, got to know about the band and what Jack does as a profession. So enjoy. Here he is, Jack Thomas from Burial Pit. What's been happening today, anyway?
Oh man, finished work 2 minutes ago.
Oh yeah, what are you doing?
Part of work. I'm a music therapist.
Oh wow, shit.
But I'm doing this kind of mentoring program for new grads. So I just had an hour of telling a new grads it's all going to be all right.
Yeah, I get that feeling too. Yeah, I finished at Bond. I'm obviously a mature age student, but I finished a journalism degree at Bond last year.
Nice one.
Now I'm moving into teaching, and I'm ghostwriting biographies. I've got a few up that are happening at the moment, but unfortunately, being a writer starting out doesn't necessarily pay the mortgage and the electricity bill, if you know what I'm saying. So teaching is the next stop, and I'm enrolled in a Cert 4, about to start that through CQU.
Nice one.
So we'll see how it all goes. Yeah.
Is that for secondary or primary or?
No, it'll be adult education. So I'll do my Master of Letters through CQU as well, and I'm hoping to springboard directly from the Cert 4 into a tutoring gig.
Nice.
At CQU, there one of the unis up here. So Southern Cross Uni, CQU, South Queensland University, the one out at Toowoomba, maybe. That sort of thing. As you know, mate, nowadays a lot of this stuff is now done the way we're doing it now.
Yeah.
So that's the plan, but
cool.
We'll see how things turn out in the long term.
Yeah, sounds good though.
Indeed. So I'm curious though, because I see a lot of parallels between what you're doing in your role in the day-to-day and what you're doing here with Burial Pit. Because you're an academic, so you'll understand where I'm coming from. I'm sick to death of the ignorance of the mainstream press, Rolling Stone, Vice, Noisy, Pitchfork, all of the fuckheads I call them, who just ignore extreme metal completely, just marginalize it completely. But you obviously have found a place not just in your life, but in your day to day through being a musician as well. So how do you balance the two?
I think I guess having the extreme. I actually used this in a job interview the other day because they were asking me. They say because so I work in kind of the acute mental health settings, so with young adults and adults as well. And a lot of the time they ask, how do you manage dealing with, working in this kind of space and the stories that you hear and everything you take from that. And for me, like the extreme metal is exactly, it's my supervision and how I manage that. So I kind of, and a lot of that actually ends up leading towards some of the lyrical content I get as well. I work with a lot of young people who are, have experienced horrific trauma and been through so many things that no one should have to go through, let alone, someone under the age of 15. And, a lot of the time perpetrators of those things are very lightly punished, if punished at all. And I guess I see the impacts of all the horrible things people do, like, really firsthand. So that's where the Burial Pit stuff and the lyrics for that come from, is just that kind of the anger and rage that builds up from seeing all this. And I'm not actually a violent person, but it's a way to get those kind of, that aggression out in a safe space.
So you write the lyrics, I take it. Then it isn't Scott that's doing it.
No, yeah. So I do all the music and lyrics for Burial Pit. Yeah.
Okay.
Scott writes great stuff as well, and did in our previous band. Just for this one, I think it was mainly I'd already kind of written it all when we got it going. So.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just keep on talking about your music therapist role for a bit, because I haven't spoken to somebody like you before, and what you do actually does fascinate me. From the perspective that you're dealing with people who have suffered trauma, and you're obviously a musician, clearly, otherwise I wouldn't be talking to you. But is it a case of use case scenario in terms of the sort of sounds and music that you choose to use in order to sort of build a relationship with somebody?
Yeah, absolutely. So everything music therapy based should be person-centered or client or patient, depending on what you're working in, but always has to be individualized and based on what that person is into. So whenever I start any work with the younger people, I'll always start with just saying, here's Spotify, what do you like? A lot of the time pretend to like it. But for young people, I think that's where music therapy is really beneficial, because it's something that particularly young people, music is something they identify with on such a personal level. So when you introduce that into like a hospital environment or a special school or any kind of clinical setting, it really builds rapport with them so quickly, because it's a reminder of who they are outside of the space they're in or outside of their diagnosis or any of that stuff. It's actually, when you're working in music, you're working with the actual person, not all the other shit. So I find, I have really people with, internalizing emotional disorders who are really shut off from the world, and just by sharing music with them or getting them to show something, acknowledging it, showing something back that you think is kind of similar, telling them that's cool, and all of a sudden they'll just totally open up. It's amazing to see, an awesome thing to be able to do as well.
So it sounds
I do listen to a lot of shit though.
Yeah, I bet. But it sounds like as though you're using music. Music is the tool that allows you to build trust with someone who's been completely traumatized, and therefore you can point you. Is it your job then to point them in the right direction, or to give them the sort of pathway to getting better again? Is that how it works after that?
In some ways, yeah. So a lot of it is, again, like kind of like you said, like being a positive figure for people who haven't had a lot of positive people around them. I think a sense of achievement is a really huge part of well-being for people with emotional disorders or mental health conditions, and music is really achievable. I think to play stuff really well is very hard, but I can give someone a bass or a ukulele or something, and within 30 seconds there is a song of some sort that I'll be able to get them to play all the way through. And then, in that moment, not only is the trust building with someone who's a positive figure, but also they've had really easily, without having to put too much effort in, had an experience where they've done something that feels good, sounds good. They're getting told that they're good. And at least for that moment, they feel good about themselves. And that kind of, it's the flow-on effect. So like we know in music therapy, like we're not trying to, it's not curative, and we're not trying to, like, I'm not going to go in all the time and open up Spotify and change someone's life. But it's really, a lot of the time, it can be that first step towards other services. And because it's a non-invasive therapy, and it's so easy to kind of engage young people in it, it can show them that other therapies, which they might be hesitant to get involved in, might actually, be a positive experience for them. So it can kind of be, it's a bit of a gateway in that sense. And same, like I work in a high school, which is it's a special school for secondary students with emotional disorders, and we have some who will literally only attend on the days that I'm there. So then we look at kind of showing them that this is a cool reason to come to school, and then when you're at school, maybe you can start engaging in these other activities, and then you do start to see a bit of a follow effect from there on how they engage in, I guess, their whole schooling experience.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I'm a gateway drug, I guess.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, I understand, and I take it black metal, death metal, extreme metal doesn't come up too often in the therapeutic angle, or am I wrong?
uh, with angsty teens, you get more than in other areas, I think. So at the hospital I'm at, they're a bit younger, so not so much. But in the high school, and I may have attempted to convert a little bit, but I've definitely got a few pretty solid metalheads at the school now.
Nice work, man. Yeah, no, good to chat about that. As I say, it's roles like this that you do here. They are fascinating because you don't meet someone who does what you do more or less ever. This is the first time, and I'm not sure I'll meet somebody again. Just, I mean, how many were in your graduating cohort? Two or three of you, or something like that, or was it more of a
We were
specialty?
the biggest year they'd had, and we were 13, I think.
Mm.
But the year before it was like 5. But it's actually grown heaps. So now there's only 2 courses in the country, but I went to Western Sydney, and I think they get about 40 on the course each year. And the NDIS is a big part of that. So because, do you know the NDIS?
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
familiar enough with it without being able to go into any details. Yeah, continue.
Basically, it's
Yeah.
just like where people get their disability funding from now. And because the NDIS enables people to choose their own services, whereas previously their funding would go to an organization and whatever they could offer, you could get. So if they didn't have a music therapist, you couldn't get it. But with the NDIS, anyone can contact a music therapist and be like, we want it. So that's been absolutely massive for the industry. And because of that, there's more jobs and more people doing it. I think the name's just getting out there a bit more as well. I think just the general approach to health has changed a lot, particularly in the last decade of, looking at people as machines where there's a broken part and we take it out and put it back in. I think people are realizing now that it's what separates us from machines is what we actually need to be working on.
It's more holistic, the approach to therapeutic rehabilitation,
exactly.
isn't it? Yeah, I get it. Yeah. All right, let's switch topics then to the reason for the chat, which is Burial Pit, your killer band. Look, Lord of Limbs, that's what Miller sent through to me. And I know it's from an upcoming, your debut, as a matter of fact, Subhuman Scum. Wow. Okay, so name of the band is Burial Pit. The name of the tune is Lord of Limbs, and the name of the album is going to be Subhuman Scum. I just love the fact you're not trying to be fancy. You're being direct.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah. You know exactly what you're going to hear when you play it.
I like it. I'll never forget when Ice-T spoke about his rap albums. He said, "Why are people complaining about it? They've got bullet holes and blood coming out of them." On my album covers, you should know what the hell you're getting when you buy my material, that's very much the same for you. But look, as I say, I've only got the one tune to go on, but holy shit, man, that's a nasty, nasty piece of grooving death sludge. Awesome.
Thanks, man.
You're a man after my own heart with that sort of material because that's my opinion on it. But have you got anything to add in terms of the sounds that the band is conjuring? Do you think I'm on the right path by calling it a nasty piece of grooving death sludge?
Man, I think that sums it up perfectly. That's exactly what I was going for. Because I guess prior to Burial Pit, I was playing in a band called Yanomamo, which Scotty's still in. That's how I met Scotty. And that was a lot more of the kind of doom, sludge, stonery type stuff, the Sabbathy, that kind of Sabbath worship inspired stuff. And I was writing for them as well. I didn't, I liked writing the grooves and stuff, but that wasn't really what I listened to much. And then I remember particularly listening to, I think it was I heard My Will the first time, the Primitive Man track off Caustic. And I was just like, fucking hell.
It's pretty low. Yeah.
How can I do anything like this? I realized pretty fast that I couldn't. But I also realized, I guess when you mentioned the groove thing, like I struggled to write stuff that was just slow and just punishing and just kind of like dragging you. Because personally, I like to listen to stuff that can be, super heavy, but also catchy and groovy. And that was, I guess, inspired by kind of Gatecreeper, that kind of new wave of old school death metal. Don't know what you'd call that.
It's a good description, actually.
Yeah. So I just kind of wanted to kind of blend that stuff together. But yeah, if to you it sounds like groovy death sludge, then job done.
It's quite possibly. I don't know if you can get heavier or darker than what you've conjured here. It's. I mean, it's out there. I mean, I listen to stuff like Trepannering's Ritual, and which isn't typical music. If you know what Thomas does there, it's pretty out there. But yours is about as heavy as you can get before you start going to bands like Portal.
Yeah.
Because it still sounds like music. Your music. If you know what I'm
that's that is. Yeah, you get it, man. That's exactly what I because the same kind of thing. Like when I tried to, like it took me a little while to really find the sound because at first I wanted to just be like, I'm going to punish everyone's ears, but then for me, I'm like, yeah, this isn't. It wasn't musical enough to make me feel like if I was like buying it, I probably wouldn't listen to a whole album of this. So it was kind of like meticulously tweaking, and I do like when I demo something, I just do it over and over and over again. And then to the point where it's heavy, it's slow, but it's not repetitive and boring, and you do actually want to keep listening to the end. And by the end of it, you've got at least a tiny bit of energy left to maybe give another song a go.
It is your music, and please take this in the nicest possible way. It is an ordeal insofar as you've got to survive it. But I think that's a great thing because this sort of it captures your attention. Is my point there? And you go, I get sent a lot of material, okay, and I love dealing with gatekeepers like Miller and Dicey because they don't send through shit. It's just that simple. And I know when they send something through, it's gone through their hands, which means that they've studied what's going on. And is it something that's worthy co-signing? And obviously your stuff is. But I sat down with yours and I have it on in the background. I've got 2 young daughters and we go about the house and I tend to have it just in the iPhone, in the pocket, truth be told, just so I can hear what's going on in the background. And there was a moment with your material where I thought, I can't do this now. I've actually got to sit down and listen to it with headphones. That's the key. The headphones, because you've got some other things.
I can't do this anymore. So
well, I could hear that. I can hear there was, and another key word, there's a lot of intent with your music. And that's that. I understand now where that comes from with the demoing, the constant putting it through the cycle. See, I'm a writer, so I'm constantly going through drafts. The more drafts, to a point, of course, the better. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like what you're doing with Lord of Limbs and obviously the rest of Subhuman Scum. So with the day job that you're doing and life in general, I talked about balance before, but I mean, this isn't music you just blur. It's not just a blasting, grinding punkathon like Napalm Death Scum or what have you. There's a lot of parts here, man. And there's a lot of things that you've truly thought about in the arrangement. So what do you do, mate? Do you have to, late at night when it's all quiet, is this the moments in time when you put things down on tape, so to speak?
Yeah, and I was thinking about this kind of in preparation to this chat the other day, because I haven't really thought much about the writing, because I wrote these songs, I guess 3 years ago now. I started writing the Burial Pit stuff. And I remembered I went through my phone. A lot of those riffs, particularly on the opening track that comes out, I'd actually just wrote in my head when I was cruising around. I've got a bunch of voice memos of me going just like fucking no. But particularly found like when I went out into nature a bit, like with my partner, try and go on bushwalks and stuff like that. Nice. Into the national parks and things, and I went to New Zealand when I was writing some of this stuff, and like cruising around a glacier, just having like no bullshit anywhere. I think just opened that part of my mind that is ready to be creative, and the shit kind of just flows in. I actually found like COVID for me was fantastic in terms of songwriting, because I think I'm quite a social person, but I guess I had like last year, the start of last year, I had weddings and trips and things like pretty much every weekend I had booked out for ages. I'm like, God, when am I ever going to make any music or do anything? And then when everything got cancelled, I think that part of my brain that was worrying about all that stuff was just like had a sigh of relief. And literally every time I picked up a guitar, I wrote a riff that I've ended up using for something great. Started a new project with some dudes. Like having that space, just the tune just kind of flood out. So I guess that's kind of like a waffly answer to what your question was, but I guess the process
That's a
and
great
finding
answer.
time to do it is try and give myself some space. And I am quite lucky that usually the riffs just come to me when if I sit down, I'm like, all right, I'm going to write a song. Absolutely nothing. Like it's just a shit show.
Yeah.
But it'll be when I'm like walking around and something will pop into my head. I should release it one time. All these stupid vocal riffs I've got on my phone. But yeah, that seems to be the kind of the best way as well. It's funny. My girlfriend says sometimes she'll be talking to me, and if I haven't responded for a second, she'll look at me. She goes, "Are you writing a riff?" I'm like, I am. She's like, I can see it on your face.
I remember back in '96 when Mike Patton from Faith No More and Mr. Bungle and Phantom Ass and God knows how many other bands released his first solo album. Not many people know it's out. It was called Adult Themes for Voice.
Okay,
And it's him with
I'm
a
gonna write that
voice.
down.
Yeah, check it out. It's the weirdest shit you'll probably ever hear because it's just him making strange noises using the microphone and a dictaphone as the instrument as well. So he's like holding it up like a. I think this is what he's doing anyway. I think he's using that. He's there's a whole have a listen to it and yeah, you'll know what I'm saying. It's fucking strange,
Yeah.
and he's a pretty weird guy actually, Mike Patton. If he's doing that stuff, it's not even it's not music. Don't even think for a moment you're going to hear anything approaching music. But just echoing the comments there that you made about humming the riffs. I think we've all done that because I'm a musician too. But yeah, you often I know people on YouTube have done it where they've put songs together where they've done that sort of stuff, and. But there's a market for everything, mate. So you never know.
yeah. Maybe we'll do it as a bonus track at some point or something on the inlay of the record.
So what about your lyrical content then? Your lyrical themes?
Yeah, that usually kind of like a lot of that will come from just watching the news, or documentaries, or there's a song on the record called "Priest." Which again, it's always quite blunt, is about a pedophile priest kind of meeting a pretty horrific demise. And that was when I saw that movie Spotlight. Have you seen that movie?
No. Is that about that? Is it?
Yeah, it's about it's a true story. About like a newspaper in the States who's I think it was in Boston, started unraveling, basically all that pedophilia that we know about in the Catholic Church, and then how high up it actually went. But the worst thing, and which came from, I guess watching a few different shows and things like that, is the end of all of them was, and then the Pope stepped in, and then they got moved somewhere else to some even better job and swept under the rug. Nothing ever happened. So I would just sit there and write my thoughts, which were usually just like, rage. And then, try and think a bit more about what they've actually done and then flipping the script on them a bit. Like the reason I wanted to kind of go that way, and the other songs, a lot of them are about, people who abuse, it's abusers really, people that abuse children, abuse women, abuse power. It's people who do that get away with it, and it's about getting, or people who are victims of these things getting kind of violent retribution for it. And I was reading when I was reading an article that popped up on some random metal website, I don't know what it was, which was just like top 10 most extreme metal lyrics or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it was called. And I was reading through it thinking, this would be, some funny stuff, or I might get some inspiration out of it. And it was almost exclusively just these, random men writing songs about doing like horrifically violent things to women. which I think is, probably a bigger issue in terms of the whole metal scene. So I read that and it just kind of filled me with rage, and I was like, fuck this, man. Let's flip this around and make the story about, survivors of all this horrible shit, and giving them, the perpetrators getting what they really deserve.
Yeah, I'm with you on the gore grind shit. Yeah, it's a genre that I had trouble getting into as a kid and still do. I think the music's great. I think the riffs are killer in most instances, but some of that sicko subject matter and that content, I think, what the hell have you been through to write this crap?
Yeah, and I appreciate freedom of speech and it's like horror film, like the things that I write about I would never actually do. I'm not a violent person or anything, so I do appreciate in that sense, but I'm also very aware of kind of the level of misogyny that exists in the world, not just in the metal scene, and how these kind of small things over and over again do have a really, flow-on effect. And I guess, not that I'm, expecting to change the world with any Burial Pit lyrics, but I guess for me, I just wanted to put a different message out there.
I'm hearing it, and it's a good way to do it, because it's not like you're going woke and bashing people over the head and telling us we're racist and sexist and blah blah blah. You're writing thought-provoking material that is in preference to a lot of the stuff. And here's the key term again that I use with that material that we're referring to: it's in bad taste.
Yeah.
And I think that's these guys who write this material and get off on it. Yeah, they're not the sort of people I want in my household, I can assure you.
Yeah, I think it's kind of lazy as well, to be honest. Like, I'm probably my biggest critic when it comes to writing any music, and that's why, when I am demoing stuff, I'll just do it over and over again until I think, like, I try not to Chinese democracy it, but at least to the point where I think it's, as good as it can be. And it would be easy, it would be the easy route to just write gory shit about slicing up innocent women. But, I wanted to challenge myself a bit and hopefully write something that might be a bit more enticing for people to listen to as well.
Yeah, it's. I think the clock's ticking on a lot of that stuff, just with regards to the political narratives that are out there too. And I recently interviewed Eric Rutan, who's now in Cannibal Corpse, and one of the most fantastic musicians on the planet, in my opinion. But I didn't broach this subject with him because there was no need to. He doesn't write the lyrics, but and it's not necessarily even something that I think Corpse Grinder has indulged in a lot. But a lot of Barnes's early lyrics were about that stuff, fuck with a knife and all that sort of shit.
Yep.
But they haven't been called out for it. And to be honest, I don't think they should either. But it's, with the way that this woke thing is going, and people haven't been as circumspect as you've articulated, though. They've just applied these broad brush statements from an ideology, this woke ideology, and you need to be more surgical about it, which I think you've done there. And you're not saying that you stand completely in opposition to all of this shit. You're simply saying, we play this sort of music. I'm simply not going to write those sort of lyrics. My lyrics are more thought-provoking.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's... Cheers. Yeah, sounds like you get it. It's good.
Yeah, no,
even just hearing you say that, it makes all the meticulous hours worthwhile.
Oh, I do. Look, the other thing too is I get it that you've clearly laboured over this, and it's not easy. I get that. I haven't been able to do what you do. I'm a bassist, but I also play guitar, and it's having that vision that I think that you've got, and listening to a conversation that Eddie Van Halen was having earlier on. He had it in 1997 or 1998, but I first watched it today, where he's talking about the ideas that come from the ether. And it's exactly what, to go back to the point that you made earlier about you try to write a song, it doesn't happen. You've just got to be present and in the moment and have a device like one of these things.
Yeah.
Capture it, and you capture it any way that you can. But you've got to do the hard work then afterwards to turn those ideas, because that's all they are, into something tangible. And you've done that.
Yeah. You got to troll through a lot of shit and cringe through yourself humming shit as well, which is a painful experience.
Oh, well, what about rehearsal then? You're in Sydney, so I know the COVID lockdowns haven't been as severe down there as what they were in Melbourne. But tell me about how that works. Do you send the material out via Google Drive to the guys to learn, and then you all convene at some rehearsal space somewhere, or how does it work?
Yeah, pretty much, man. Like we're all while we're all very committed to the cause, we also, work full time. A couple of dudes are dads. Another one's going to be a dad soon. Play in other bands. Griff does a million things. So we also, have to be realistic about how much time we can put into what essentially is, a passion project. So yeah, it works out pretty well. I just, I guess I get the boring part where I have to tab it all out, but I'll just demo everything, write tabs, send those out to everyone to learn in their own time. And then we'll do the vocals separately. So Scotty will come around to my place, which I'm sure is hilarious for the neighbours, just in my little apartment screaming away. But again, he's like me. He's very meticulous with his vocals. So we'll, just sit in this room I'm in now and just go line by line, try it a bunch of different ways until we've got the whole thing done with vocals, and then send that to the lads. And then you cross your fingers that everyone's had time to learn it and, jump into the jam space. And then, ideally we don't have to spend too much time because we're not writing together in the jam space. It's usually more just a polishing exercise.
Yeah, and I think it needs to be too, by the way, because you're spending good money being in a rehearsal studio, or assume you are, and it's about, I call it tightening the nuts and bolts. Yeah.
Actually drives me fucking mad. Like situations I've been in the past where you put the time into demo stuff and send it out, and then you get to the space and no one's learnt it. It's just like, well, I love throwing away my time, so this is all good.
I've done gigs like that. No doubt you have as well. I've done gigs where people have turned up not prepared, not rehearsed.
Yeah.
And you're on stage. I'm on stage and I'm looking over at them and I'm thinking, did you think you were going to fucking learn it via osmosis? What the hell did you think was going to happen? We've got another 14 songs to go on the set. Okay, and you played more wrong notes than right notes. You clearly don't know the material. What do you think is going to happen? It's this mentality with some musicians, isn't it?
Yeah, and I guess, I don't know, mine's just the total opposite. I like to sound as good as I can and just want to make the use, particularly when, and it's good that the other guys are on the same page, like because we're all, so busy just living adult lives. It's the only way that you could really make it work without driving each other insane.
I think that's
and it would
key,
also take another 5 years to put something out.
but you just said it then, which is the way that I've framed it many, many times. If you're leading an adult life, one with responsibility, you tend to understand time management.
That's it.
You meet these musicians where they've got all the time on their hands, and they're the ones that'll fuck up the most. I can assure you, it's always been the way.
Yeah.
So, what about shows though? Then, because I'd love to see you guys live. I'm very curious to see how it translates to the live arena. So, have you got any booked?
Yeah, so we're playing. We've got an album launch in Melbourne on the 29th of May. So we're playing there. Awesome bill. Playing at Old Bar. You've been to Old Bar before? You've been
there in Melbourne? Not too familiar with Melbourne, to be honest, man.
Yeah, I grew up in Melbourne. Really cool venue, pretty small as well, which is kind of what we're after. And we're playing there with a band called Munt. Don't know if you know those guys, like a blackened grind band. So we played our second show ever on their tour, and have stayed in touch with those guys. So we're playing with them. The band, which I hope I don't pronounce wrong, I say Isua, I-S-U-A.
Okay.
Just made up from a few different members from some Melbourne bands like No Haven, Dawn, Giant. And you should definitely give them a spin as well. It's just kind of pure sludge, I would say, just filth. Nice. So yeah, we got that coming up, and then we're doing our Sydney launch on the 4th of June. Again, fucking awesome lineup. We've got Descent coming down from Brizzy.
Mm-hmm.
Just death metal awesomeness. Alchemy, who just put some new stuff out recently as well. Again, that kind of black and death grind, everything. And a band Or, who I haven't actually seen yet, but have heard their kind of first thing they put out, just OAR, Or. And there's a bit more kind of post black metal, I guess, like a bit of that kind of
Deaf Heavy sort of.
Yeah, exactly, a bit of that. So yeah, we fucking can't wait to play these shows, particularly because we only played a handful of standing up shows because
you did some of those sit down things, did you?
We did, yeah. So because our first shows were in late 2019, and we only really had a couple of them, and then we were recording, and then the plague came, and then late last year we jumped on a couple, particularly our friend Dave, who did the music video for us for Lord of Limbs. It was by Grim Reflections. He put on Resurrection Fest at Crowbar in Sydney as like a fundraiser for them.
Resurrection Fest. Oh yeah, I read about that. Yeah, they got over. They made their number 2, didn't they?
Recently they did, with all the extra stuff. So that was awesome. Yeah, another awesome venue run by an awesome crew. But yeah, so we played a few sit-down ones, which were weird, but we were just keen to do anything. But yeah, we've pretty much played as many sit-down as we have standing up. So very fucking keen to be playing to an audience that can at least stand up with their arms crossed instead of sit down with their arms crossed.
Very much a band of the times, aren't you?
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I couldn't stand all of that shit.
Literally.
The sits. Well, yeah, literally. The whole idea. You could have had rapid testing units set up. You understand what the testing, they could have done that, okay, because they were within a margin of an error. They were correct. But this has been the issue, is because up here, I think Crowbar up here, I might be wrong, but I think it's closed down. Yeah, that's not good. That's bloody awful, as a matter of fact, because I think the last gig I saw there, which is one of the best I've ever witnessed, was Corrosion of Conformity. And I caught up with Pepper and the guys afterwards. Jesus, good guys, great band, killer live outfit. And a decent, the old one was downstairs on Brunswick Street now, and then it moved to Warner Street, I think, in the old Bright Side. And it lost a bit of the ambience, but I understand people have got to do what they've got to do to keep a business afloat. And we had an extreme metal venue, and there's the key word again. I keep saying key word. There it is. Have a drinking contest in this podcast for every time I say key word. And have a shot of tequila. But look, it was. I don't know whether we've got too many around. I think Mansfield Tavern has been putting on a lot of stuff. I know Miller and Renault, Black Renault, were up here. I didn't get to see them because I had a gig last week myself, but I think they're in the suburbs now, man. I think in terms of inner city clubs in the valley, I think it's gone at the moment. It's just that someone else needs to start one up.
We've kind of experienced that, man, because we wanted to do Brisbane as part of these launch shows at the same time, or any Queensland shows. But yeah, we couldn't get a venue. Mainly because the ones that were suitable, because there's so few, were booked up. And then even, we've looked at later in the year, and it's even a battle to find. I mean, I guess, none of us have spent a heap of time up there, so we don't know the scene too well. But it seems like a bit of a battle to find the venues that are putting it on.
I think it's only Mansfield, dude. I honestly, at this point in time, and there's Mo's Desert Cult Clubhouse down at Burleigh. I think that's it, man. I'd like to think. I've thought very seriously about opening a venue around Mount Gravatt, Southside.
Yeah.
I just don't know whether I'm willing to take the risk.
It's probably not the best time currently.
Well, I was going to do it before COVID. I was going to scout a place, just a 70 or 80 capacity venue.
Yeah.
Not a big one. Bands like you guys for that sort of thing, because I'd love to foster the underground. But you decent fucking bands, man. None of this weirdo crusty stuff. Like bands like you guys, where there's a program, you get what's going on, easy to deal with. You just want to perform live. Here's a venue.
Yeah, that'd be sort of amazing.
Have I know it doesn't sound like much, but have at least 50 or 60 people turn up. So as a little bit of a pick could happen, and there's a bit of atmosphere there, that sort of thing. That's still a bit of a dream I've got to say that I've got.
Man, well, yeah, we'll play it when you've got it going. Sounds perfect.
So you guys, as far as I'm concerned, you guys have got it going on. Interest from overseas. Have you had a lot of people reach out?
We've had just kind of the random dudes, just listeners hitting us up who've found us on a playlist or from Spotify or whatever, just sending us heaps of good stuff from like Finland and Norway, and I think a bit in the States, maybe in the UK. But yeah, as far as that goes, I think the idea of internet. It's weird to even think about international anything. So I guess it hasn't really been on our radar too much, and we haven't heard too much. But of course, keen as to get as much music as far away as possible.
Mm.
But I think
it's
that's
interesting.
Sorry, you go.
No, you go. You're right.
I think that's been kind of a really, hopefully it'll turn out to be a really good thing for Aussie metal. Like when you're looking at, did you see the Black and Open Air lineup that went out the other day?
Nice work on that one there, yeah.
Yeah, fucking awesome lineup. And heaps of, bands that are in the scene getting a good gig. And I think like if it wasn't for all the borders being shut and stuff, probably bands like Died as Murder and Psychroptic, even like Amel and the Sniffers are up there. They'd probably be overseas doing all the European tours and shit. So I think it's worked out pretty well on our end. And I hope it has a kind of flow-on effect that people realize, because I saw a lot of comments on those when they posted the lineup of people being like, fuck, I don't know any of these bands. What are all these names apart from Die Art? And I was kind of like, if you go to any local gig in your local city, you will know all of these bands. So I'm kind of hoping from this shitstorm of COVID, it maybe injects a bit of life into the local scene and gets a bit more people to, appreciate how many awesome bands we have right here at home.
It's very interesting, isn't it, in that our Australian bands, in my experience, once you hit a certain point, you get far more interest from people overseas than you do from people domestically. And that's been mirrored with the podcast. My domestic listenership, my overall listenership is increasing, but my domestic listenership is down to about 11%. It's very strange.
So weird.
And I'm talking like it's shrinking. Like people who've been listening, they've stopped listening. I'm not saying that because I'm growing, it's just as growing at a slower rate. It's shrinking a little bit. And I just interviewed Max Cavalera. As I said, I've got Eric Rutan coming up. I'm thinking, I'm not sure I can be doing much more. But, who else can you interview?
I was reading through the list as well. Like, fuck, man. I better plan some clever shit to say. There's a serious list on there.
I just try to have conversations. The point of difference that I offer is to both yourself as the interviewee and the listener is it's a conversation. And I hope you found that, because I think I've listened to a lot of podcasts and a lot of YouTube. They're still podcasts, but they do the stupid video thing where there's them and the Zoom, Zoom flips to whoever's speaking. They put that up, and I've elected not to do that except for a couple of occasions where the band has asked me to do that, and we've had a compelling case to do it. But I just try to be a bit different that way. But mate, what can you do? Man. Yeah, you can only do your best and be who you are in your soul and present that.
Yeah, but it was like I remember 2018. It might have been. I can't remember. A few years ago, when I was still playing with Yanomamo, and we were playing, a fair few like doom stoner shows. And I'm not saying us, but heaps of. It was a pretty big scene for it at the time. Like lots of local Sydney bands playing that doomy stuff, and gigs. You get a few punters kind of coming in, the odd good show, but on a whole, nothing that'll blow your mind. And then we had Windhand and Cough, great bands, coming in on a Wednesday night, and the place is fucking sold out and full by 7 p.m.
Wow!
And I'm like,
same night.
Yeah, and I'm like, man, like these are great bands, but you realize we've got bands playing very similar stuff at an equal level, if not better, for half the price on the weekends that you can see every fucking week. But where are all these people? But yeah, it's like you said, there's not an international name or a USA bracket next to the band. People don't seem to show as much interest here.
No, and I have it on good authority. We're seen as an easy lay by shitty American bands.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that pisses me
Yeah,
off
cool.
because I mean, if you get, I've witnessed some, and I'll name one, Smashing Pumpkins. They were fucking awful. They were
Yeah.
atrocious. And I just looked at these guys. It's like, why did you come here? But the people around me, they were screaming. This was 1996, so years ago. They were
Mm.
screaming, like Beatles style, for these
Yeah.
dickheads, and they were
Fuck.
shit. I just thought I spoke to
Yeah.
Fiona Horn about it, who was in Def FX. Do you remember Def FX at all?
No, I don't, unfortunately.
Killer band from back then. They supported Smashing Pumpkins that night. And I was so glad that I had an opportunity to tell her she was better. They were better than Smashing Pumpkins. It was a
Yeah.
big gig, Festival Hall here, I think it was, Hordern Pavilion in Sydney, Festival Hall, I think also in Melbourne, I think it was. It was that level of gig, of course, being the
Yeah.
grunge era. But it was terrible, and they played. I think I've checked this, verified this, and setlist.com, where you can see where the
Mm.
set list. I think they only played 9 or 10 songs, less, I think it was, and then they did an extended jam. Great,
Yeah.
get to hear the
Fuck
Smashing
off.
Pumpkins not play their instruments. It was serious. It actually put me off going to gigs of that nature ever again.
Mm.
And
It's a
I like
shame, hey?
there's people like Metallica, obviously Aussie, that I'll always go and see. Maybe
Yeah,
not
yeah.
so much Metallica, but Aussie, of course. But Iron Maiden, those bigger bands, but they bring
Every
it, don't
time.
they? Yeah, I mean they
Man,
bring it. They're
Iron
the
Maiden,
masters.
they'll put on a fucking show every time. All like, I have so many. If I had to put like my top 100 nights of my life, all the Maiden gigs would be in this top 20 of those easily.
Did you see this somewhere on tour?
Was that the last
Oh
one?
wait, no, 2008.
2008. That was the first time I saw them.
Yeah, same
That
here.
was my
Yeah,
first Maiden show. And literally, I remember, so they did 2 nights in Melbourne. The first night, full nosebleed, like I was literally leaning against the back of the wall. Because this is when we had to go to this shopping center and line up for fucking tickets in the morning.
I remember both of those. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the next day so that sold out. We got our fucking nosebleeds. And then while we're at the shops, they're like, we're putting another one on. And then we rushed in and managed to get on the floor. But I still say, and me and my mates talk about it all the time. And there was like a moment in Fear of the Dark, and I was crowd surfing. I think I would have only been like 19 or something. And was crowd surfing and ended up just pitched right in front of Yannick. And for some reason, I wasn't moving anymore. Like I was just sat, like I was sitting on a fucking chair. And we were just, and he was singing it to me, and I was singing it to him. We were just fucking Fear of the Dark. And I'm like, man, that's
Fear of
life.
the Dark. Yes, yeah. I was in the nosebleeds too here at Boondall, the entertainment centre up here, and but yeah, I'd loved Maiden my virtually outside of young childhood my entire life. So actually seeing them live, it was strange seeing them live though. I've got to say, because I've seen their videos. I had all of their videos and then their DVDs, and then I watched all of their YouTube shit from about 2006 onwards, whenever YouTube sort of came in. So seeing them, especially after watching Rock in Rio, I think I wore out the DVD.
Oh man, I remember getting that for Christmas.
How good is that? I love that so much. I remember
out of
getting
it.
the poster. Yeah.
And,
and it was one of those things where it's like, I'm loving what I'm watching, but I feel like I've seen it before. So it didn't detract from the experience, but it was it was almost no different to watching them on a video because of the production. It was just they bought it. They bought the production down with them.
Yeah. Just absolute pros.
Yeah. When Eric Danielson and Watain came down, I spoke to Eric, and he's another good bloke, actually, despite them being a full-on satanic band. He's just a very easy guy to talk to and get along with. There's a lot of Swedes are, if you've ever found that with Swedes.
Yeah.
And he sort of said half disappointedly, half not to me, that they weren't bringing down the full production. I went, dude, that's killer, because you guys are about the best black metal band around at the moment in terms of just full-on, no bullshit, balls to the wall, no keyboards, black metal. And I said, we're getting the Ramones version. He goes, you get it. That's exactly, And I was like, and they played the Crowbar. It was so good, man. I got video of it. It was so intense.
Oh, that'd be amazing, man. Yeah, but I only saw them at Download. They did one year, or Soundwave. Sorry, I think it was a Soundwave. And yeah, that was like big fucking stage, flaming crucifix, everything kind of.
Well, were they on at like 3 p.m. or something like that?
They actually had a decent spot, but on one of the side stages. Like, so they're like late in the day, but which is kind of good because like the really kind of mainstream ones are on the main line. You got to see just absolute brutality, like you said.
Mate, I'll make this my final question, final point, wrapped up in one. But where can people find your material and the social side of things? So you've obviously got Facebook and probably Instagram as well. So can you talk through that?
Yes. So the best place, if you go, I mean, as of May 21, Subhuman Scum is going to be on all the platforms you can think of.
May
Spotify,
21, okay. Yep.
iTunes Music, YouTube, all of those things. But you can pre-order the album now via our Bandcamp. So just put Burial Pit into Bandcamp and you're good to go. We've got merch bundles up there. We've got limited bone white vinyl. Got t-shirts, herb grinders, for whatever herb may interest
you. Herb grinders, nice merchandise.
If you're into cooking. So yeah, those are up now as well, which you'll probably actually get before May 21st if anyone chucks a pre-order in. But yeah, that's the best place. And then when we're doing shows, come to the shows.
Well, look, congratulations on crafting what I anticipate will be one of the best recent grinding death metal grooving albums that will be around. I mean, I don't think you can do more than what you've done based on the evidence that I have is from Lord of Limbs, but I imagine the rest of the album sounds like that. So congratulations on crafting it for a start. And I'd love to see you guys up here.
Yeah, thanks heaps, man. Really fucking appreciate it. And yeah, we're talking to some bands up there, and as soon as we can get a venue and sort out babysitters for the dads, we'll be up there.
I have a feeling it's been the big obstacle to me getting out and about in the last few years. So, but yeah, look, good luck with everything. And I meant what I said, man. I think you guys you're on point. You're writing everything, so you're on point with what you're doing. I mean, this is. I don't feel like I've heard what you're doing. Also, too, it's the style might have been done before, but the way you're doing it is new. You've got a new angle. Okay. And that's my point on that. So, and that all comes down to the demoing that you're doing, man. So whatever happens from here, man, just keep doing it. Well, fingers crossed you can keep doing it. I can't wait to hear the album too. So
yeah. Thanks, heaps, man. I really fucking appreciate it. Thanks for the kind words and the support. Love it. Love your work.
That was Jack Thomas from Sydney-based death sludge outfit Burial Pit. Hope you enjoyed the conversation. My name is Andrew Mackay-Smith and I'm the host of the Scars and Guitars podcast series. Thank you for tuning in.